Birshus, the Monsey of Shuvu, Rosh Yeshiva, Rabrutni Shlite, Birshus, the Yoshvei Rosh of Shuvu in the US, Mr. Biederman, Mr. Hoch. We have board members here, friends of Shuvu. Poistrim bechvoid achsanya. Normally, when you have a host who hosts an event for a Stocker, 90%, do I hear echo? 90% is L'Shem Shamayim, and 10% is because you get recognition for what you've done, for what you're doing for the Stocker. In the case of tonight, it's 100% L'Shem Shamayim. My childhood friend, Bent Rabbi Yomin Philipson, himself couldn't be here. So it's 100% that he's giving his house and he's giving what he can to help Shuvu. It's 100% L'Shem Shamayim. Rabbi Yomin Philipson is a big Baal Stocker. I knew his parents from Denmark, back from Denmark, and his father also was a big Baal Stocker. And we thank Rabbi Yomin for hosting this evening for Shuvu. I wanted to thank the Rosh Yeshiva for coming. Rabrutni is the Moire Derech for Shuvu, a Talmid of Rapam. Just like Rapam would tell us not to say no to any Jewish child, Rabrutni follows Shlite in his footstep and is Moire Derech. Thank you for coming all the way, Rosh Yeshiva. 2 weeks ago, Shuvu made a bar mitzvah and bas mitzvah for 400 children from all over Eretz Yisrael, from all the Shuvu schools. And I had the zchus to speak for the children. And I told them that Rapam said something which I never understood pshat. Rapam said that the future war in Klal Yisrael is going to be fought in the classrooms. What's pshat? Today we understand pshat. What's going on today in Eretz Yisrael, and we know about what's happening the last few days here in America, the Rosh Yeshiva has to come here to collect because the government and the High Court is fighting Yiddishkeit. Why is that happening? Why is there a war going on in Eretz Yisrael? Why is our enemies fighting us? Because we are not strong enough inside. Because the chinuch in the classrooms, Rapam said, that's going to decide the war, the future war of Klal Yisrael. Our enemy sees that we are fighting between us, and the children are not getting the Jewish education, the strong Jewish education that they should get. Then they get strong. Our job is to be mechanech, said Rapam. The future war is going to be fought in the classrooms. We have 1,000 children waiting to come into Shuvu for this 1st of September. There's places where we don't have physical classroom to take them in. In Beersheba, 100 children are begging to come into our school, and we don't have physical room, and we don't have the means to take them in. Our goal is, we're already up to 600 children, that we're climbing up to 1,000 children. Each child is $1,200. We're trying to climb to 1,000 children, take in 1,000 children for the coming year. And I just told the Rosh Yeshiva that somebody came 2 weeks ago to visit Shuvu, and he said, your aim has to be 1 million children by 2040. If we get to 1 million children, then we won't have the problems that we have today. We won't have a government that's fighting against Yiddishkeit. We'll have what Rapam said, V'chol bonayech limud Hashem. So whatever anybody here can do to 25 children, a classroom. I went to somebody in LA. I told him a classroom, 1,200 children, $1,200 times 25 is $30,000. But if you take 25 children, you'll get a discount. You get it for $25,000. So he looked at me and said, I don't want a discount. This is Jewish children. I'll pay you the $30,000. So whatever we can do tonight, whatever you can do, so I can go back tomorrow and say yes, like Rapam said, yes to all these children that want to come into Shuvu. Then in Mitzvah Hashem, we'll see what Rapam said, what Rapam always said, Chinuch Kodesh lezera Kodesh be'eretz HaKodesh. Thank you.
גדולים מעשיהם של המפעל הזה של שובו, אשרי מי שזוכה להחזיק בידיים של תנועת שובו, לחזק אותם כדי להשיב לבבות לאביהם שבשמיים.
You
will have thousands and thousands of children that you'll be able to say, these are mine, these are my children.
The name Shuvu is very befitting because Shuvu means come back. And he brought back not only the children and not only the schools, but the entire families.
Today I'm proud to say that my whole family was Chozrim B'Tshuva.
I was there at the beginning. Rav Pam Zichron Livracha spoke at an Aguda convention. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were coming to Eretz Yisrael from the former Soviet Union, Russia, Ukraine, other countries. And Rav Pam said, it's a Shevet in Klal Yisrael. We cannot abandon them. And the battle will be won in the classrooms. And a lot of people, even Gedolei Yisrael, thought, he's dreaming. Yes, he was dreaming, but he made the dream come true.
This is the story of Yiddish Kinder, he said. Take the Kinder and throw them to the ground. Don't bother with them. Let them go their way. Because they have no emunah. You say they have no emunah. Throw them away. Let them go.
It was a touch of genius for him to create the Shuvu system.
The many, many schools of Shuvu that has completely turned around the lives of perhaps thousands, I guess I could say.
That very night, he organized a group of Talmidim and Balabatim to begin Shuvu.
The Shuvu was the organization that saved Russian children, that they would have been lost for Yiddishkeit.
And she looked at me and she told me, camera at Shabbos, you can't film on Shabbos. And I asked her why.
Well, basically nothing. I knew only two things, that I am Jewish and that I have to eat kosher.
They changed life completely.
We have a Shas to end. We have Am Yisrael to Lazim B'Tshuva. My Rebbe always said to us that we are the next Gdol Ador of the Am Yisrael. So we have a lot of work and a little time.
Where should these children get their chinuch? Either in the Mamlachti schools or in Shuvu. They were begging to be included in Shuvu.
The first decade began. Getting children into Chinuch Hatzmui schools, Tashbar schools, it wasn't easy, but many schools agreed. And then getting trailers, having special classes for the Shuvu children, but it wasn't ideal. It was a good start, but it wasn't ideal. We realized that Shuvu had to have its own schools. And when that happened, the dream started to come true in earnest. It's 10 years later. Shuvu had its growing pains, but we're on the map. And it has a plan. The plan, its own schools. Nothing else will work. You can't have these children in schools, no matter how good they are. They can't be in places where they are considered third-class citizens. They had to be in schools where the Rebbeim and the Moras loved them, appreciated them, and their parents, because the parents had to be coming along, they had to be willing. So Shuvu began building schools all over the country.
It's a wonder that the parents want to send them to such a chinuch bichlal in caravans when they have the choice of sending them to beautiful, up-to-date, modern schools in the public schools. Who believe that parents with such a background who are not yet proved themselves, but they want this kind of chinuch for their children?
Those schools have to be better than the public schools because we have to take children from families who grew up under the communists. No God, no belief, no religion.
I even didn't know what is being Jewish. What does Jewish mean?
And they had to be convinced that this is the place to send their children because the schools are better.
Shuvu attracted thousands of families that were chilonim. They were chilonim, the full sense of the word.
They took a poll in Eretz Yisrael, and they found out that more than 50% of the parents want a good education, but were teaching me something about Yiddishkeit. I don't want a public school education. So we actually can fill in and capture 50% of the kids.
רוצה לספר אתמול, ראש ישיבה אתמול בא אליי אברך כהן בפונוביץ' שביקשו, אשתו עובדת עם איזה, ביקשו שיבוא הביתה לקבוע מזוזה. הלך הביתה, מזוזה, והיא חילוניה. שואלת, מה זה מזוזה? מזוזה, שמים מזוזה, הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו. היה שם ילד בן 15, שואל, מי זה הקדוש ברוך הוא? מה זה הקדוש ברוך הוא? ילד בן 15, פה בארץ.
פרק ה' משנה א'.
אין עומדים להתפלל אלא מתוך כובד ראש.
That's our obligation. We're not talking about 1 kid, 2 kids, 5 kids. We're talking about half the population of Eretz Yisrael.
The third decade of Shuvu, Rav Pam's vision, his dream, vindicated. Schools all over.
I came to Shuvu in the 5th grade. I was studying in a Chiloni school.
I came here in 5th grade.
Graduates coming back as teachers, as rebbes.
Today I work in Shuvu Bat Yam. I'm a principal here.
I'm teaching in Shuvu.
Secular Israelis.
Saturday was a good day to go travel around.
Want to send their children to Shuvu schools because the schools are better.
Now, thanks God, it's much different.
French Jews were forced to flee their home country.
It was very important for me to find a good school.
So Shuvu starts a new department for French Jews.
It's a new experience for Gabriel.
Shuvu's products are coming back to Shuvu. Their own children going to established yeshivas.
Man darf wissen, als nicht mehr raten wird ein Kind, mehr raten wird die ganze Mishpache.
If I look back how I started my life, how I grew up in the regular world, my 8-year-old son is learning Gemara.
And they are training the next generation that will be going to established yeshivas and assuming new positions of leadership and changing the face of Israel.
And to see the job that Shuvu is doing with these children, and the lichtigkeit, and the holiness of the boys, the girls. I was envisioning as I was watching this, with tears in my eyes, my Rebbe Zatzal's Nachas and Gan Eden.
Torah is on the march. Just give us a little more time and we'll present you an Eretz Yisrael that is fit for the Shekhinah, that is fit for the Melech to return to the Paltinishal Melech.
Alle, was schön helfen, bei Schuhe und Gebenstörung, Hochschulers und Geistmers, nachher von Kinder, die ganze Sprache.
Schluss to hear the Rosh Hashiva live, the Nasi of Shuvu, Rav Brudny Shlite.
Bruchim Habayim. Just on 2 points. First of all, the Chavetz Chaim has 3 collection of mitzvahs for a person that obligates a person to be careful in Shmiras Haloshen. The first one is loisases, and he enumerates a list of loisases that not being careful in speech, a person will be over on those loisase. Then he brings mitzvah saseis that compel us not to speak lashon hara. And the third part is orurs. That an orur that a person will have if he talks, if he doesn't speak properly. Among the mitzvahs asay, he brings the mitzvah of l'dafka boy. The mitzvah being mizdabek betalmidei chachamim, v'lilmoid mimaseyim. And he says that if a person speaks lashon hara and he joins a group that talks about other people improperly, so he's doing the opposite of liyizdabek betalmidei chachamim v'lilmoid mimaseyim, and he's over on the mitzvah of l'dafka boy. And then he goes on that the mitzvah of l'dafka boy is a Gemara in end of Ksubis. How is it possible to one to attach himself to the Shechina? The Shechina is an Eish Oichla. And he says, the Gemara says, it means liyizdabek b'talmidei chachamim, to be around Talmidei Chachamim, to emulate Talmidei Chachamim, to learn from Talmidei Chachamim, to copy the anhag of Talmidei Chachamim, to follow in the footsteps that Talmidei Chachamim. And he quotes the Rambam in Hilchos Deis, that's what the mitzvah of the Dafka Boy is. The Rebbe, the Rosh Hashiva Zechet Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vracha, had a vision. A vision in the Russian Jewry didn't begin 30 years ago. Russian Jewry began close to 55 years ago. It was a process. The Vad Latzola started much before 30 years ago. Work in Russia started more than 30 years ago. In America. But this vision that the way to work with Russian Jews is when they come to Eretz Yisrael, instead of them being melting into the melting pot, Rachmana litzlan, of Israeli secularism, in all its manifestations, let's find a way to grab neshamas. 1, 2, 3, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. V'chulu, v'chulu. And that way, these neshamas are coming back to their source. V'shaftem, isha lachuzasai, ve'el mishpachtoi. We all, Eretz Yisrael is where we all come from. That vision, nobody had till Rebbe Zatzal. It was his vision. When we heard it, we were all incredulous, like we saw in the video. But those of us, of his Talmidim, that were Mekayim l'dafka boy, they just marched. Lechtech acharai b'midbar. They're still at it. They're here tonight. They don't sleep, they don't eat. All they totally shuvu, weiter shuv. And those misnadvim ba'am, those that listened to the message of shuvu, and the message of shuvu resonates with them, they're doing this. There's no bigger mitzvah than l'daf kaboy. It's being mizdabek in the Shechina Kedosha. It's the highest level. There's Ava, there's Yira, there's Dveikus. Dveikus b'Hashem uvoy sidbok. V'hatem adveikim b'Hashem v'likreichem chayim kulchem hayom. Joining the Shuvu bandwagon and following these incredible generals is l'daf kaboy. It's the highest level of Avodas Hashem. And honestly, I try, even in the times of where it's real difficult, never to say no to Shuvu. Tonight I have 2 chasanas in Lakewood, obligatory chasanas that I must be by. But I can't say no to Shuvu. I love Reb Avram, I love Reb Yossi, I love Reb Chaim Michael. But if I have to go to 2 chasanas, I could say no. I can't say no. Because they are L'davka B'Yidin. And if they are L'davka B'Yidin, how could I be remiss? That's why there is no greater Avodas Hashem than to partnering this undertaking. And take lebal yidach mimenu nidach. The oivdim be'eretz Ashur, the nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim. We're so close to those days of v'o'av ha'yom hahu. U'v'o'u ha'oivdim be'eretz Ashur v'nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim. Yishtachvu l'Hashem b'har ha'kodesh v'Yerushalayim. That's the general perspective of what you just saw and what you know about the successes of Shuvu, the fabulous transformational successes, but there's a much higher expression to this entire endeavor, and that's L'davka Boy. When we do for Shuvu, we're following the ultimate Talmid Chacham, the ultimate visionary, and I've said it many times. It took 70 years or 65 years for the Rosh Hashiva to go out of his Besmedrash. It took 65 years for the Rosh Hashiva to leave his Dalet Amis and to go out to solicit funds, to go out and tell people to give money. Those of us who grew up under his tutelage know how deeply difficult it was for him to tell people give money. And then when it came to Shuvu, a transformation took place. Because this is the Chazoin Achris Hayamim, talking about a Yid that in addition to his Ga'onis in Shasu Paiskim, that you couldn't catch him on an ois of Tanakh. He lived in the Nevi'im Akdoshim, the Nevi'im Rishonim, the Nevi'im Achroinim, the Kisvei HaKodesh. Anything that was going on in the world, maybe he was living Tanakh. He was living Yeshayahu, he was living Goshea, he was living the Nevi'im. When he got eloquent in these inyanim and he said over the nevuos of Nehemiah, of Ezra. So joining is L'davka Boy, is va'atem adveikim v'Hashem u'lechekeichem chayim kulchem hayom. And just one other nekuda. It's very interesting because there was a miracle, because Shuvu took off like a meteor. Shaloi kederech hateva. It cut through the bureaucracy of Eretz Yisrael. It cut through the inertia, everything that stands in the way of any endeavor succeeding there. It just made it. There are times when things are not stable in the way the government operates, that the first victim is Shuvu. Not necessarily out of malice, not necessarily out of disdain. No, the way the bureaucratic setup is, the establishment can't really give too much hurt to an established Torah institution like Chinuch Atzmai, and these kind of institutions that were established way before, many decades before. Shuvu came in as through connecting to this Moisid and having autonomy within a Moisid. When it came that we needed desperately busing for families that can't get to a school, and the only school that's within reach is the secular school. And the only way to make sure, we couldn't have autonomous busing. We didn't have the in with the government at that time already in the history of the state of Israel, where we are a relatively smaller institution, can make free government busing. So the way we were able to get busing is that Chinuch Atzmai, to their credit, made room for us, partially, Al Kapanim, in their busing budget. But when something like now today, where there's so much turmoil in Eretz Yisrael, and especially the war, that the first victim in the diversion of funds is that diverting funds from religious education. That part of religious education that the government helps, that's the first victim in a war budget, in a war economy. The Chinuch Atzmai will survive this because it's established in law and entrenched in law. Shuvu is basically on the wingtails. It's been coming in of Chinuch Atzmai, and we're hurting. We're hurting that Rahman al-Itzlan, we're out of funding for the busing. We're out of funding for open classes. There's not a word of exaggeration in what you heard from Chaim Michael. There are 1,000 kids knocking on the door, 1,000 mishpachas knocking on the door. There are 1,000 more families ready to be Mekabel Mashiach and ready to take away the Choshech. And there's no funding. This is the time. Now is the time to roll up our sleeves and join the Shuvu bandwagon and be L'Dov Kaboy and follow the leadership of our Heilige Rebbe. Soll sicher sein bekorov zu Geula Shleima, zu Yeshua Kroiva, should be Shalom and Asati Shalom Ba'aretz. The hostilities should stop. The Shavubanim Ligvulam in the immediate time, the people in the south, so many of our students come, the people over the north, so many of our students come from there, should be able to be Vishavu Ligvulam, should be Shalom Ba'aretz, and Bekarev, we should be Zeicher to the Gula Shleima B'Meheri Yameinu.